let's return to the epic, the recitation of the epics again. I want to learn a little bit more about that. And so here's what I gathered from what you were saying, that there are, first of all, there are a few people left who have these epics memorized in the tradition of oral traditions rather than written traditions. And so it is a dying, sadly a dying tradition. But the other aspect of this is that this memory that's stored in the minds of these people is triggered, if you will, or summoned by external circumstances, a time of year, certain kinds of ceremonial practices, something that's sort of like a trigger for the memory, so that the person really doesn't have the recall of the memory until the time is right. And that is just absolutely amazing. It says so much about how the relationship between the human mind and just human culture and the environment. So I think that's amazing. And if you have more to say about that, that would be great. And the other aspect I want to, and I know that Sandhya, you and I had a conversation about this some months ago, that these epics can take quite a long time to actually recite.
Yeah.
And so all of that is stored. It's not in a book, it's stored in the mind of a human being. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And Sonal, if you want to add anything to that, that would be quite interesting to learn more about.
Well, I have not really heard many of them. I have heard one or two, which they call Vyakhyan. And these are all night performances, and a lot of people come and listen to them, etc. And they include some amount of acting also, and it's almost like the person is in a trance, and he or she, whoever it is speaking out the epic and singing or reciting it. What this person actually told me, this Dr. Rajesh Rathwa, who I was talking to, is that it's not as if they cannot remember anything. It's just that they seem to remember it in bits and pieces. And even I found that really, honestly, very, very strange. How can somebody at some point of time remember the whole thing and at other points of time not remember it? But I was looking at my own self, and you know, we have the Garba, the dance. There's a festival called the Garba. Hello, you have you ever seen that festival?
I have never seen it, no.
Okay. Anyway, so it's a 9 nights of dancing. It's a simple dance, simple steps, but it goes on and on and on, and everybody enjoys it. At the end of that, there is a prayer which is sung to the mother goddess, because it is around the mother goddess image that the dance happens. Now, you will not believe it, but I can sing that entire prayer only at that time. If just now I'm sitting here and you tell me to recite, I will recite, be able to recite it, but I will be able to do it in bits and pieces. It is
Mhm.
possible that because a whole lot of people are singing it, I can remember it. It
Sure,
at that time. So perhaps I remember it in bits and pieces. But
sure.
because so many other people are singing it, I think I imagine I know it all.
Yeah,
But it is something which it is stored somewhere in the memory, and it just comes out at that time. It doesn't
yeah.
come out at the time. So
Mhm.
I then began to realize that what this man is saying is perhaps very true, that it requires a certain environment when that person can actually come out and recite it.
Mhm. That makes sense. In some Native American groups, for example, there's in the Great Lakes, there's this tradition of birch bark scrolls where they would draw symbols on them and connect the symbols with lines, but it wasn't immediately decipherable by anyone. In fact, only some had access to it, and some had access to understanding these symbols only at certain levels. But it was a mnemonic device, meaning that when they sang these songs, that it would encourage them to remember how all of the pieces that you're talking about were linked together. So it wasn't like words on a page where you're singing the words on a page. Instead, it was symbolic representations that encouraged your memory to connect all of those dots. And so, in that case, it's symbols as a mnemonic device, but it also seems like there are many other kinds of mnemonics out there in the context of a festival or the context of a ceremony or something like that. So that's really fascinating information. Sonal, did you want to add anything to that, to your knowledge?
Yeah, I would just like to add that see, most of their recitals and the narration of an epic or a legend, they happen on certain specific occasions. They just don't happen randomly for entertainment at any point of the year. So maybe a person's or an artist's refusal uh, to not remember, maybe just respecting the sanctity of that recital for that particular occasion. He may be may remember the whole thing, but may not want to recite it at that particular time, which is not the actual time of that recital
Yeah,
within
that,
that community. It could even, yeah, it could be that too.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So again, humans and our cultural worlds are very complicated. So trying to tap into what's really going on is always a fascinating endeavor, but it can yield multiple answers, some of which are even contradictory. So I appreciate that perspective on it. I think there's probably a lot of truth behind that.